All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're tackling a question that really gets to the heart of our democracy here in Canada. Does your vote truly count? We're going to walk through a really fascinating court case that put our entire voting system on trial.
You know that feeling, right? You head to the polling station, you mark your ballot for the candidate you believe in, but when the election results roll in, they didn't win, and it just feels like your vote, well, it just disappeared.
Well, back in 2019, a couple of citizens groups, Fair Voting BC and Springtide, decided to take that exact feeling to court. Their argument was that our winner-take-all system, first past the post, doesn't just feel unfair. They argued it's actually unconstitutional.
So here's how we're going to break down their case. We'll look at the fundamental right to representation, dive into the sheer scale of this wasted vote problem, explore how the system can actually discourage us from participating, and finally, tackle a really big question about equality. Okay, so the whole thing really kicks off with Section 3 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It's the part that guarantees every citizen the right to vote. But the plaintiffs asked a deeper question. What does that right really mean? Is it just about the physical act of marking a ballot, or is there more to it?
And that brings us to this really key legal idea called effective representation. The people suing pointed to a previous Supreme Court decision arguing that the right to vote isn't just symbolic. It means our vote should have some level of equal power, that we should have a real, genuine voice in our government. And here's where their argument really takes shape. They basically said that with first past the post, only the votes that go to the winning candidate in a riding actually turn into power in Parliament. If you voted for anyone else, your ability to influence what happens is, as they put it, unduly diluted.
Now think about it from the Member of Parliament's perspective for a second. This quote from the legal filings really hits the nail on the head. Even an MP with the best intentions, one who maybe only got, say, 40% of the vote, is constantly forced to choose between the interests of the people who elected them and the interests of everyone else.
And, this isn't some abstract legal debate. It's a real experience for a lot of people. This quote comes from an affidavit filed by an ordinary voter, and it just puts such a human face on the whole argument. It's the feeling that your own MP represents a party you voted against.
So this isn't just about a feeling. The plaintiffs brought the numbers to back it up, and honestly, they're pretty staggering.
Just get your head around this for a second. 52%. In the 2021 federal election, that's how many Canadians cast a ballot for a candidate who didn't win. That's nearly 9 million people. It means, according to their argument, that a majority of voters ended up with absolutely no one representing their choice in Ottawa.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. This is just a problem for supporters of smaller parties, right? Well, the data they brought forward tells a very, very different story. Just take a look at this from the 2019 election. Those lighter colored bars, those are what the court case calls wasted votes. And you can see it's not just a problem for the NDP or the Greens. Look at the huge numbers for the Conservatives and the Liberals. In fact, over 2 million supporters of each of the three biggest parties cast a vote that didn't help elect anybody. So that leads to the next logical question. If that many votes don't end up leading to representation, what does that do to your desire to even show up and vote in the first place? So they pointed to another really important Supreme Court case, the Figueroa decision. It established that our right to vote is also about our right to meaningful participation, that we should be able to express our actual political preferences in a way that matters. So how does first past the post get in the way of that? Well, they argued it does a few things. You've got safe ridings, where the outcome feels like it's decided before you even vote. It makes you think twice about voting for smaller parties like the NDP or Greens. It pushes people into strategic voting, where you vote against a party instead of for one. And they claim all of this just leads to people checking out of the process entirely. Okay, now we're getting to what might be the most groundbreaking part of their whole case. They didn't just say the system is ineffective, they argued it's actually discriminatory, which would violate our Section 15 equality rights under the Charter. And they came at this from three different angles. They said it discriminates against voters based on their political identity or beliefs, and they argued it creates these systemic roadblocks that contribute to the underrepresentation of both women and visible minorities in Parliament. That first one, discrimination based on political identity, is a really new kind of argument. They're essentially saying that if the system consistently makes, for example, an NDP supporter's vote less likely to elect an MP than a Liberal or Conservative supporter's vote, well, isn't that a form of discrimination? So what about the argument for women and minorities? The idea isn't that the system is intentionally biased. It's about the incentives it creates. Under first past the post, a party gets one shot to win a riding, so they're often pushed to pick the single safest candidate, who historically has often been a white male. But they argue that proportional systems push parties to build diverse lists of candidates to appeal to the widest possible group of voters. It's a totally different incentive structure. So when you pull back and look at all these pieces together, you start to see that this lawsuit is asking a really fundamental question about what democracy in Canada should even look like. It really all comes down to this one simple but incredibly powerful idea that the right to vote guaranteed in our charter isn't just about the right to show up and put an X in a box. It's about the right to have your vote, your choice, count. So is a system where more than half of the votes don't help elect anyone really delivering on that promise? Does a system that creates such distorted results truly live up to our charter values? That's the core question they put before the courts, and it's a good question for all of us to think about too.